Elden Ring is great. It has some bosses. Let's rank them. For the purpose of this boss ranking, I'm going to include everything that has a health bar. Anything from a normal enemy felled to a great enemy felled will be included. And I will start by ranking them from worst to best, and then I will have a separate ranking where I rank them from easiest to hardest, based around my personal experience. Now, how many bosses do we have here? Yeah, let's start this. With how many bosses there is in Elden Ring, I decided to separate them into smaller separate sections, and we're going to start with ranking from worst to best, and within this we're going to start by throwing out the boring ones first. These are bosses that I don't particularly hate or find to be annoying, they're just kind of there, you know. They're just something that you get to fight, and it's over, you get a reward. They're essentially roadblocks in your way to becoming an Elven Lord. So let's start by going through them. Miranda the Blighted Bloom, less scary Audrey 2 from Little Shop of Horrors. Omen Killer and Miranda, aka Poison Ivy and her simp. Omen Killer, more like Capra Demon if he ate hot peppers and were high on acid. Soldier of Godric, the boss you will be judged on the most if you die to. Demi-Human Chiefs, 2 beasts in the cave. Beastman of Farum Azula, slightly harder beast in the cave.
Scaling Misbegotten.
Godric Soldier 2.0. Grafted Scion, amalgamation that's bound to make someone lustful with how many body parts it has. Battle Maze Huges, can barely remember him. Adon Thief of Fire, NPC as a boss. Necromancer Garrus, NPC as a boss. Escar Priest of Blood, NPC as a boss. Vike Knight of the Round Table, NPC as a boss. Kindred of Rot, High Polluted Shrimps. Nox Sorceress and Nox Priest, range compensators. Stonedigger Troll, looks nothing like a troll. Alabaster Lord, similar to Onyx Lord. Fia's Champions, NPCs as bosses. Clean Rod Knights, cooler Half-Light duo. Abductor Virgins, took me too long to find these rejected saw traps. Bloodhound Knight, Vord's Lost Blood, Vord's Blood, Vord's Drunk, Vord's Bloodlust, Blood, Rune Bear, terrifying. Spirit Color Snail, Witch of Hemwick is back, baby. Demi-Human Queen, they were a thing you could fight in the game. Wormface, Flu's origin story. Sanguine Noble, never underestimate fancy old people with a K. Onyx Lord, similar to Alabaster Lord. Leonine Misbegotten. I don't like this guy. Perfumed Trisha and Misbegotten Warrior. I don't like this guy. Misbegotten Crusader. I still don't like this guy.
Godfrey.
The Grafted. Maybe fun, but a reskin is a reskin without the cool second phase of Godric. Fell Twins, half worse 4 kings. Bolts Carrion Knight, I love how this guy look and he might be better than a reskin, but it's still a reskin. Now for the Hateful 12. They may not necessarily be the worst bosses ever, but they are the bosses I can't stand personally. Number 12, Black Knife Assassin. The infamous murderers of Godwyn the Golden. The Black Knife Assassins are extremely speedy and dodgy buggers that I personally do not enjoy fighting. These are the type of enemies that exposes some of my inner weaknesses. Fast movement, super evasive, and high levels of damage. Cause when I fight an enemy or a boss, I want it to be a fight and not a game of the enemy evading every move I try to land while they hit seemingly every hit themselves. Like those dragonflies. They can be annoying sometimes with how fast they are. Or the Dark Souls 3 dregs. Or even the imps in this game. I really don't enjoy them. But with the Black Knife Assassins keeping the pressure up more than the Crucible Knight with their speed and ferocity, they make for a stressful and not that fun of a fight for me. Especially when they bring out the Black Flame attack. Number 11, Crucible Knight and Misbegotten Warrior. I'm already not a fan of the Misbegotten, so imagine taking a different highly aggressive enemy and tossing him into a Misbegotten fight. Nah fam, that ain't cool. For someone who already has trouble with boss fights that has multiple targets in it, at the very least, I wish the things I fight in it to be fair and balanced. But this isn't it. And it's a reskin of 2 bosses that eventually get turned into just normal enemies, pretty much like the Capra Demon and the Taurus Demon from Dark Souls 1. That's pretty lazy, guys. Number 10. Crucible Knight and Crucible Knight Odoris. Do you enjoy fighting two overly aggressive enemies that normally keep the pressure up by themselves, put into a single fight? Well, too bad, because that's your reward for going through the that name hero's grave. At least the previous fight has the audacity to let you fight the Misbegotten first for some time before the Crucible Knight joins the fight. In this case, the moment you pass through the fog wall, these guys come running and pretty much ruin your summon like they did to me.
You better stop!
Individually, I kinda dig these guys, but as soon as a new element is added to one of them, they skyrocket in their challenge to me. So having two of these with both having second phases, that Dragon Tail, the spinning drill move, and their overall delayed attacks, all of this creates a package of balls that no one ordered. Also, nearly all of their moves push you down, which is just annoying, and yet another fight containing reused enemies. Number 9. Blackblade Kindred. Never once in my many playthroughs of the Souls franchise did I ever wish for any gargoyle fight to be more challenging. But I guess that's just me, because in 2022, with the release of Elden Ring, From gave us exactly that. These guys are found here and there, and every single one of them, to me, is almost an equal to the Orphan of Kos in terms of their difficulty. Not only are they enormous in size, but they have multiple weapons that they can switch in between, with the hardest one being the one with the twin blade, which is ridiculous. I know many say that Melania's waterfowl dance is broken, but this one move that one of these guys can do, I would say is equally broken. So while I'm not a fan of their fight, they do have a nice aesthetic, and the amount of moves they have makes them feel very alive. So I can't say that they are a bad design by themselves. They're actually quite really well designed. I'm just really bad at them.
Or someone like you, my good friend, my good compatriot, may I introduce you to the concept of safety. Something far beyond any form of damage you could possibly take. Just consider the fingerprint shield.
Okay. Why you here? And why you recommended me something that isn't on my normal playstyle?
It's simple. When you have a playstyle, any playstyle, at the end of it, it all comes back to this idea of safety, survivability. You want to live throughout fights. So, slap on a rapier or a lance, and consider the fingerprint shield.
I mean, thank you for the recommendation, but that's not my normal playstyle, really. I don't tend to play around with shields all that much, because that's just not me. But I guess I'll take that into consideration next time I fight one of these. Thank you, voice from beyond. Yeah, okay, that was weird. Number 8, Deathbird. Undoubtedly the creepiest birds in the lands between. The Deathbirds appear once the sun leaves and the night takes over. They are scattered across the land and they have some really awesome moves. But sadly, while I adore the creep factor of them and the moves, the fight itself I'm not the biggest fan of. They can be quite annoying and their damage is very high. And the scream attack is just... Ugh. Out of all the birds, the one in the mountaintop is the one I like the least. It seemed that no matter how I fought it, it had all the tools for all the right moments. But like with the gargoyles, their design is very nice. Number 7, Royal Revenant.
Rot in
Number 6, Godskin Noble. Bosses typically have movesets that fit their sizes, with reasonable damage that makes sense, but the Godskin Noble proves the opposite. Despite being the chunky role model for me, its speed and damage is ridiculous. To a degree, I do appreciate the don't judge it by its look kind of approach. But we will get more into the reason for why this guy really should have been more like Smo in just a sec. The first phase of this guy isn't actually that bad and kinda cool, but once the second phase starts is where the big middle finger gets pointed in my direction. The new Ultra combo and the infinite sometimes instant roll that is pretty hilarious makes this boss go from kinda cool to a you need to die tier of fight. You know the ones. The type of enemies and bosses that just have those unbalanced moves that just scream, we're gonna kill you cause we're hard. Like every move of Bed of Chaos, or Invader Satsuki. The slam attack of the Elden Beast, and even like the previously mentioned Gargoyle Twin Blade of Death. Going back to that roll move, I hope that it is a bug that allows him to insta-roll like this sometimes. Cause if he's legitimately meant to just in one instant get out of his roll, stab, and the very next moment start to roll again, that is near impossible to react to unless you're far away from him. But hey, you only fight the noble here. I mean, imagine if you fought him and the apostle one after another. There's no way. Number 5, Godskin Apostle and Godskin Noble, Spirit Color Snail. This is a good teaser for a future fight, but it's still not that great to me. The first Spirit Snail fight was something. Not fun, but something. But this one has a twist. You actually have to fight a Godskin Apostle first, then a Noble, and then you get to kill the snail itself. As if the Apostle isn't already pretty challenging, but the fact that right after it you have to fight arguably the harder and worst Godskin. That is one heck of a request the game asks of you. Definitely an endurance fight that I wish didn't tease a future disaster.
I wonder what that snail would look like. With a fingerprint shield on top of it. Just a thought.
Are you here to just talk about a single thing? Like,
when it comes down to good gameplay, good game design, fingerprint shield.
We get it. You're advertising something that you find to be really awesome and really cool. But out of all the things that exist in this game with like 100 different items, you only suggest this one thing as if it's the solution to everything? Like, come on, there has to be something else, right?
Fingerprint shield.
Alright, we're just gonna ignore that. Number 4, Valiant Gargoyle and Valiant Gargoyle with a Twin Blade. Almost like there's a pattern here. Take two enemies that are mainly built for solo fights and just put them together and call it a day. So with the previous track record of duo bosses in this game feeling more like the Throne Watcher and Defender to me in terms of their unbalance, you'd be safe to assume that I don't like these guys, and you'd be correct. Similar to the Crucible and Misbegotten, you start the fight with a single gargoyle and later the other one jumps down. But unlike that fight, the gargoyle is way beefier than the Misbegotten. And while I might not find this fight as annoying as the Cruci duo, the damage output and moveset here are far worse and feels borderline unbalanced. This is a fight I could never see myself soloing. And speaking of fights that I'm never going to solo, Godskin Duo. Now, the previous fights have pretty much all been optional, which is great, because if you truly don't want to fight any of them, you can just skip them. You know what will make any of them worse? If you had to fight them every time you start a new game. Oh boy. This fight. The fact that both Godskins have similar attacks in terms of their damage, speed and range, with their own second phases that will be initiated in the same fight, the fact that they can break the pillars that normally would be used to separate them like with Ornstein and Smough, the fact that it is a mandatory fight, and the fact that they respawn after 15 seconds of being defeated, because of their health pool being connected and requires multiple kills of them. All of this combined makes this fight an unforgettable and unforgivable nightmare to do. But, credit where credit is due, they do offer the ability to kill the Godskin you find the easiest and not forcing you to kill both. So that's something. This is where, if the Noble had been more like Smough, slower and less aggressive, if the pillars couldn't be destroyed and if their attacks weren't so similar, this could have been a really awesome duo fight. Think about it. They make you fight them one by one at first, as a tease for this fight, and once you're here, you'll be up to the final test. The funny thing is that they are doing this in Elden Ring. But sadly, the build-up makes you fear them more than getting excited, and they're too similar to one another without any sort of balance between one another once put together. If the Apostle is the flu, then the Noble is a sinus infection. Both are enough to deal with by themselves, but when combined, you just feel like you want to die. So without a doubt, this is the worst fight in the entire game, solely because it's mandatory and it's really unbalanced. Number 2. Ulcerated Tree Spirit. This has to be one of the most infuriating things I've ever seen in a Souls game. As if its grotesque but thematic name wasn't bad enough, how would you like to fight something that slithers around the entire arena with moveset that's hard to differentiate it from normal moves and its attacks, with incredible damage, speed and range, and the fact that it's a battle for the camera as well unless you lock onto it? Sure, it has one of the coolest grab attacks, I agree, and you do get pretty much something good every time you kill one of them. But with how these guys behave with their unsettling moves that doesn't sit right with me, and with how many there are in the game, I can't personally say I can be a fan of these freaks.
It's beautiful, gorgeous design that really complements the Fingerprint Shield.
Do you have no one else to bother with?
Sir, you must understand. Gameplay evolves into the Fingerprint Shield.
Look, we already established that we all get it. Just get out of here. The main reason why I hate these trees more is because of how many there are. And whoever designed a small area in the Ashen Capital with 3 of them in it, I hope you end up on Santa's bad list permanently. So without a doubt, this is the worst boss in the entire game, because it has all the speed, all the range, AoE, buttload of damage, is reused way too many times, disgusting looking, can't be parried, and it doesn't even have that of an exciting score either. I mean, the music itself is pretty generic. The only good thing about them is that they are optional. Oh, thank God they are optional.
Ulcerated Tree Spirit represent!
Number 1. Electo, Black Knife Ringleader. This assassin. This freaking assassin. Worst boss in the game. Enough said. And now on to the fights that I consider fun, leading to my absolute favorites. Archery, Burial, Watchdog. These scary animal-confused creatures have plagued my mind since the network test. Their freaky nature and very unsettling moveset is the main reason for why it's here. Not a particular good fight, but kind of fun. As long as they don't make it do Ancient Hero of Samor. This guy I like because of its seemingly smooth movement and ice powers. I don't like the near instant AoE move, and I don't like the ruins on the mountaintop where there's 10 of them. Patches. I only put him here because of the comedy factor. It's hilarious how Patches tries to be a boss but then cower in fear after being hit. If you do try to do him on New Game Plus though, be careful so that you don't accidentally one-shot him. Mad Pumpkins. Their lore may be horrific, but I still like fighting them pumpkin heads, dang it. It's as simple as that. Cemetery Shade. Bring up the creep factor as our next combatant is nothing but creepy, fast and aggressive. The Cemetery Shade is a teleporting shadow with scissor-like blades that causes bleed and what appears to be a face hugger for hair that can spew a green stun ball. Definitely one of the weirdest and most disturbing enemies in the game. Elimer of the Briar and Bell-Bearing Hunters. I took on Elimer first on my playthrough and he was really cool. His telekinetic powers with his sword makes him a very unique and memorable enemy to me. It's just a shame that they had to bring the same type of boss back at night at certain graces. When that first happened, I honestly thought it was Elmer again, seeking revenge on me. I'd really like that more. Alas, it doesn't seem to be the case. This guy possesses enormous rounds of damage and aggression where it can sometimes feel like he has moves for literally everything you try to do. layered combos that sometimes get cancelled, and then a whole new pain starts. Everything from the telekinetic attacks that feel like it adds a damage increase, which goes from hyper fast to delayed, to the long range shield bash that can be turned into a mini AoE, and the very destructive drill move. And this is the main reason why I put him so low on the list. It's due to his relentlessness and the damage being sky high. The range alone is a hazard to deal with. But dear lord, when he lands some of his moves, they pack a massive punch. So yeah, his reskins and his brutal challenge is why he won't go any higher on my list, despite how sick he looks. Crucible Knight. The earliest death wall for me. The Crucible Knight feels like fighting a Black Knight with a more delayed but quicker delivery on its moves, but also turned into a mini-boss. Get this knight low enough and they activate their inner dragon and perform a gorgeous wing move, as well as adding a dragon tail move that is incredibly fast and can severely mess up the dodge time that it probably took you ages to get used to. And I want to be upfront about this guy. That dragon move is the reason I died to this prick so many times. And I know the whole, but parry him, broseph. Oh, equip a buckler, just parry him, make him easier mentality. And unless we are in Bloodborne or Demon Souls, I'm never parrying anything personally. Sure, it's cool when you nail it and the sound cue is satisfying, but it isn't my playstyle. Anyway, this guy is really good practice mode for the many Crucible Knights you will find across the lands between. I wouldn't be surprised if he killed more Tarnished than the Tree Sentinel. Grave Warden Duelist. Grave Wardens are just badasses wielding really cool weapons. In the network test, I actually found them really intimidating. But now, I think they're just pretty cool. They are a perfect example of an enemy to me. I could almost feel the punches they deliver. The sound of him mashing the ground with his hammer, and just the animation of him swinging them. It's like I feel the weight of them just by looking at it. Golem. The moment I saw images of this enemy, I felt like they were going to be an extremely destructive enemy. But they're actually quite easy and really awesome. I just really wish we could have had an armor that's based around them. We can get their halberd but not an armor set? Come on. As for the boss, I feel bad about it, because I discovered him way too late in my playthrough. I would have liked to see myself being absolutely battered by him. Regardless, I still like fighting these types of enemies. Now this blue guy in Caelid, however, he is the real Golem boss, despite not even giving a boss elf. Blue being harder than the red one. It is Dark Souls 2 all over again.
Sir Gideon Othmere, the all-knowing!
The Tarnished who wishes to increase his insight beyond 99.
Sir Gideon Othmere, the all-knowing!
Has a cool mechanic that makes him stand out a bit more than the rest of the generic NPC fights. It appears as if he learns spells that's tied to the shardbearers that you report to him about. Hence why he uses the Scarlet Rod, Rykard's Skull, Mog's Claw and Blood spells, and I can't confirm it, but maybe he can even do Ronaldo's Staff Spin, which is pretty cool. Sadly, he didn't expand his hobby from being a bookworm and make himself a great fighter as well, because that's all
Sir Gideon Othmere, the all-knowing!
does. He spams spells at you, and while his normal combat spells eviscerate your health, he is pretty easy, I gotta say. Just a cool character with a cool mechanic. Magmawar. Pretty easy and chill fight, I gotta say. I like its look, and its weapon is actually quite nice. Not much more about that. Other than screw that worm that drops the Moonveil. Screw you. Godskin Apostle. They may be a hard-hitting bastard, but its moveset and orchestral music almost makes this fight incredible if it weren't for the massive amount of damage. That one fireball attack may not be move queuing me as much while healing, but it has for many players out there, and it's pretty obvious why. In fact, this might be the guy in the entire game that move queues the most, and its moves alone are pretty spectacular. Spinning its twin blade? Yes, that's a twin blade. Like a madman, role-playing as Slinky from Toy Story, and even conjuring the black flame of One Dear Sister Freed. And just the nature of them and the noble. Godskins. It's just gross. But I'm not gonna pretend that I can't see why they could be killing gods. They definitely had the skill level for it. Red Wolf. The cut content Wolfie from Dark Souls 3 has arrived, and it's very interesting, but kind of annoying. The Red Wolf can summon Carrion Blades before executing some of its attacks, and even summon a fiery blade to swipe with. It's not that hard to see why some may call it the Sith of this game. While the Wolf can certainly be tricky to dodge perfectly, with the magic going off and then having to dodge an attack immediately after that, it does have a pretty reasonable low health pool. That's a good compensation to make up for its speed and aggressiveness. Dragonkin Soldier. I really wish the Noxtella one was the only one we had to fight. Sure, the one in Noctron offers you horse combat, which is unique for it, but the one in arguably the best place in all of Souls, I mean, let's be real here. Really? Was this boss needed here? The Dragonkin Soldier isn't that hard, but it do suffer from the bloodletting beast syndrome of having some very questionable hitboxes from time to time. The damage is quite high, and these fellas love to scratch up their remaining nails on the ground as a follow-up many times. Wonder if they try to eat the Dark Soul, seeing how they got a little Gale situation with their lack of stomach. Commander Niall and Commander O'Neill. I included both here because of how similar they are to one another. While O'Neill controls the Scarlet Rod, Niall prefers to cast Ice and Lightning. The main difference in their difficulty and design is the following. O'Neill allows horseback and summons more but less threatening enemies, while Niall doesn't allow horse combat and summons two of the toughest enemies in the game. In both cases, the commander tends to be very generous and allow the player to deal with the adds first before taking on the big man himself. O'Neill can summon more adds throughout the fight, but Niall doesn't seem to, which is a really good thing, cause let me tell you who the real commander is here. No offense to O'Neill, he's fine, but Niall is crazy. This dude walks around with a peg leg that he can stab and summon lightning with. He has the wind and the cold by his side, and with how much more limited his arena is, it makes all of his AoEs way more dangerous. I have a hard time ever imagining soloing the two Banished Knights and then Niall. This may be one of the hardest fights in the entire game, not gonna lie. This guy would make Gundyr proud with how he fights. Did I mention that both commanders can also buff their summons? Knight's Cavalry. The first horse rider on the list. Only accessible at night. These knights come with many different weapons. From glaives to flails, all riding their pretty stallions. They're pretty interesting in the sense that you can actually kill the horse and have a small ground fight with the knight before you resummon it. Going toe to toe with them while on your horseback is super satisfying. Especially with the encompassing music. Probably the closest to a Nazgul fight From has given us so far. Draconic Tree Sentinel. More is not always better, and that's how I feel about the Draconic Tree Sentinel. While having an awesome look and while the red dragon lightning is awesome, all of these elements on top of a Tree Sentinel? I don't know, I feel like it's a little too much flair. The one move you should really watch out for and get used to is the Lightning Shield Strike. This move to me is the hardest of its movesets, and it hurts. Be real glad that they didn't do a gang fight with this Sentinel. Wouldn't be surprised if we get that in the DLC either. Next up, the OG Tree Sentinel. The original first step spawn killer. The Tree Sentinel is a really awesome fight against an awesome knight. Taking him in on your torrent or flawlessly dodging in on the ground, it's just a damn fun fight. The main reason I put him this low is because of the reuse of him in yet another duo fight. Sure, you can duel a single one and then take out the second one, but reuse is a reuse, even if the fight is very fun. Crystallion. I love these guys. It's just so fun to break them and watch how all of their poise flies out the window, and I actually think they make for a much better gank fight than the other duo fights in this game. One of them is a pretty calm, close and medium range ringmaster. The other is a hilarious jump stab, jump stab, jump stab. And the last is a pretty long-range spellcaster, eerie similar to the Shadows of Jarnum, and I think From did a fine job here too. Tibia Mariner. Now, before you get mad, let me explain this one. Not every single boss has to have a gimmick like Yorn. Not every single boss has to have 30 moves like the Gargoyles, or be as challenging as Artorias. Sometimes, a boss can just be an old dead man in a boat that toots his horn and summon an army of skellies. This boss is the same way I feel about Patches. It's just a comedy masterpiece of a boss fight. I just can't look at this and take it seriously. It's too funny to me. Erdtree Avatar. The Guardians of the Minor Erdtrees are really fun and fair fights to me. It's like the final evolution of the Asylum Demons from Dark Souls 1. You can take on these guys with everything, cannon them from afar or have a ranged battle with bows, sit upon your horse and fight with magic or sword or just be on the ground. And what's more is that they are really rewardful. The majority give you a unique ingredient for the Flask of Wondrous Physique. There's sadly a duo fight, but it's fine. You just go horse and magic for those. Open World Dragons. A Souls game like this wouldn't be complete without some dragons. While it's technically the same dragon, there's a variety to those found in the open world. And I'd say I find all of them pretty fun, but due to the similarity of them, I don't really know which one I'd really prefer. But here we go. Flying Dragon Agheel, the first and the easiest. Flying Dragon Grail. What if Agheel was scaled for endgame and fought on a bridge? Decaying Exekias. Sorry, what was your name? Glintstone Dragon Smaragd. Magic Dragon with blue fire. Glintstone Dragon Adula. Magic Ice Dragon with its own Moonblade. Borealis the Freezing Fog. Cool dragon. I'm just a big fan of ice. I typically went for horse battle when taking on these dragons with a combination of magic and other weapons in order to combat them. But being on foot doesn't hurt either. It was just a matter of running far away from their side fire and the AoEs that some of them have. And I mean, how can you not enjoy slaying some dragons? Even if they do tend to be in the air a lot of the times, I still find these dragons to be a really fun fight. Falling Beast Star. These are some strange horses from space that uses a combination of its extendable tail, ant-like mandibles, and gravity magic to attack the player. Their attacks can be really hard hitting, and I swear, this has to be one of the most resilient bosses in the game. But I guess it shouldn't be surprising seeing how it's covered in rock. This boss is pretty aggressive and very quick with its moves, so I'd recommend an aggressive playstyle for them. I will say that this thing is somewhat cute. If it were a tiny plushie, I'd probably buy it. A plushie I'd never buy though is Estelle, Natural Born of the Void, and Estelle, Stars of Darkness. Congratulations Miyazaki and staff at From Software. You finally made a boss that legitimately gave me nightmares. And I'm not exaggerating that either. I legitimately find this thing to be one of the scariest, if not the scariest entity in all of Souls. The cup monsters from Dark Souls 1? Nope. The handle fans from Dark Souls 3? They are sexy compared to this monstrosity. Heck, the entire Bloodborne is easier to grasp with your mind than taking a single glance at this thing. I think it's because of its inconsistency that adds to its freaky presence. Let me explain. If you look at the Breeders from Bloodborne, she may look disturbing, but at least all things on her make sense. You can kinda see why they would be on her, and why she looks like this. But with Estelle, it's like a rejected toy from Sid's closet. I mean, just look at it! It's got a body made out of 100 Orbeez, 6 amygdala arms, a pine cone on steroids infused with nails for a tail tip, 2 pairs of dragonfly or moonlight butterfly wings for, well, wings, and a human skull with a cracked forehead with a sinister blue eyeball inside of it, and 2 sets of mandibles, one being small and the other one being gargantuan. And that's without mentioning its intimidating size and its lore. The fact that this is a malformed star, like, that sentence alone should make anyone a little uneasy. Think about a star like our sun and how massive and pretty it is. And now think about the fact if a star is born wrong, and it turns into what Estelle looks like. That's freaky to me. Pure Bloodborne nightmare. Aside from its terrifying appearance, the arena for the Natural Born is really atmospheric and stellar. The one in the mine sadly isn't as good. The music is really thematic. It captures the incredible nature of the being, including its complex yet scary nature. And its moves are pretty cool with how it manipulates gravity magic to its own will. Both of them have a grab attack, but mine Estelle spawns like 7 Estelles, all coming to grab you at once. Absolute nightmare fuel. To be honest though, I actually don't like its boss fight really, but with how many other elements this boss has going for it, it makes up for it I think. Sad also that there is 2 of them. The one from Ronnie's questline should have been the only one we get to fight, so it would remain as a unique enemy and not as a reuse. God-devouring serpent, Rykard, Lord of Blasphemy.
Join with Elven King as remedy. Together we will devour the very god.
I don't like this fight. Now I will admit, the dialogue is extremely memeable, and I really love that the gimmick weapon actually offers a lot more variety in its moveset. And I even love the theme and the appearance of the Lord himself. But Rykard uses yet another weakness of mine. Extremely delayed attacks and some extremely fast ones that messes with me so much. Like even the grab attack of the snake, which is very well telegraphed. It is just that delayed for me that I've fallen for it way too many times. To me, Rykard is more of a spectacle boss than a boss that asks, should I also be a good fight? Because there's so much going on in the second phase with a bazillion skulls coming from nowhere, the sky turning red, Rykard still doing his normal moves in the background that you also have to deal with, and at the very end, he's charging up a mega slash that can eviscerate your health. All of that is insane, and it's so overwhelming, and I personally can't handle it that well. But I will say though, thanks to a dear friend of mine, he taught me how to easily cheese this bastard. Use only L2 attacks and Shard of Alexander and he will be severely stunned, as you can see in this footage. Ancestor Spirits. This is a pure atmospheric fight. It just gives out vibes rather than offering that much of an amazing fight. Not that the fight itself is necessarily awful, but if it wasn't for the stellar color, gorgeous music, and the overall calm nature of the fight as a whole, I don't think it would be this memorable. For me, I feel like I'm playing Journey or Abzu again, with the color palette and the music. But I swear I remember it looking different in the trailer. You looked more like a proper moose or reindeer that was just more glowy, rather than a decaying one. Maybe it's just me. Anyway, the only difference between this is that the regal one can heal itself and become way more glowy as far as I know. Definitely one of the easier fights in Elden Ring, but one of the most memorable. Loretta, Knight of the Helichry. Whether it be in Lernia or in the Helichry, there's no denying that Loretta is a really fun and beautiful looking boss and the final evolution of the Tree Sentinel fight. The most magical horse rider in all of the lands between, Loretta possesses a plethora of magic abilities alongside her glaive. She can summon glint blades, shoot star shower, and do her signature move, Loretta's Great Bow. And with her glaive, Loretta can perform a cool magic slash with it. And when the second phase pops, she improves her magic abilities, especially the real Loretta. Her bow becomes leagues more deadlier and you have to dodge much more magic coming your way. So while I do like her, she has a lesser version to take away from her uniqueness, seeing how similar they are. And you can't fight her while on a horse as an option. That would have just been a different element to add to the fun value of this boss. Hope that one day my torrent can have cosmetics like all the other horse bosses. Godric the Grafton. Child of Godfrey and Margaret, humiliated by Melania, the Lord of
all that is golden.
Godric the Grafton. One of the earliest hype bosses for me personally. Godric had me in fear for quite a while. Knowing how Margaret was, I thought to myself, Godric must be way harder, right? Actually, not really. He may have more delayed attacks with just as quick or quicker deliveries, but he's way more consistent than Margaret, and it's just really fun. He laughs when he fights you, and he grafted so many people onto himself in order to appear more menacing. He truly is insane. I mean, he rips up a dead dragon's head and makes it come alive in order to use it as a flamethrower. And his axe can make earthquakes? Just wow. A true spectacle boss that I do enjoy. Mimic Tier. What an interesting concept that leads to the dream of a way to just fight a Mimic Tier whenever you feel like it. Like seriously, give us that in a DLC. I want to experience even more chaos against myself. Cause by its own, it's just a generic NPC fight. But the fact that it mimics seemingly everything that you have on you the moment you enter the arena, from spells to talismans, and it can even do Ash of War and everything. It's just fantastic. This one boss opens a massive amount of experimentation, like fighting with only magic, using a Mimic Tier Ash to fight it, or to fight it for 30 minutes with only your fist and your friends. Introduce a bonfire aesthetic into this game from. Please do. Or just give us an arena where we could just seemingly fight how many Mimic Tiers we want. Mog the Omen. Hidden deep within the sewers of his former home is a place known as the Cathedral of the Forsaken, where the illusion of Morgot's brother exists. I'm mainly calling it an illusion, seeing how it seems to run in the family. Godfrey has his apparition, Morgot produces Margaret, so I'd assume Mog knows how to do it as well. Being the fanboy of Bloodborne that he is, Mog uses an assortment of blood magic that can burn, and a massive trident as his weapon. He has plenty of range with his attacks and they're all on the delay. You gotta bait them out a bit before dodging. I mainly put Mog here because his fight is fun, but it's still a reuse of phase 1 from the real Mog fight. Not like the difference between Margaret and Morgot. This is pretty much just phase 1 Mog. Other than that, what's interesting about Mog is that he's voiced by Con O'Neill, who also voices Titchy Gren in Dark Souls 2. Runala, Queen of the Full Moon. What if you took Rom's arena but set at nighttime with a normal moon in the background, the Deke mechanic, and made Big Hat Logan into an actual good boss? You get Runala. Once a foe and wife to Radagon, now locked in a grand library with only great sorrow and dreams to resurrect her daughter. Runala is a great sorcerer who leveled intelligence as her first stat. Thanks to this, she can use Comet Azure, her signature full moon spell, Glintstone Stars, Shattering Crystal, and even use her staff itself as a weapon. And she knows how to use Ash summons. However, she must have installed some mods, because she can summon a dragon or a troll, which is cheating. But she can also summon Flow or a pack of 4 wolves, so I guess it's fine. But before you can even take on the Queen, even though it's an illusion created by Ronnie in order to protect her mother, you must take on Runala's loyal but imperfect scholars, a la Deacons of the Deep style. This fight is not only atmospheric, it's just a chill, fun and beautiful boss fight that mixes familiar mechanics but with its own little twists. I do wish it could have been made a smidge harder. Maybe a Crystal Sage ability where she clones herself, where you have to try and find the real Runala for instance. Or even more magic spells. I don't know, I like her, but I wish there was more to her. Ancient Dragon Lanciax. Dragons have usually been good in Souls games. I said usually. Lanciax is definitely one of the better dragons. She has the size and the might of a proper one. Its moveset is self-explanatory and not that hard to get used to. Lanciax possesses red dragon lightning that adds to her already coolness. And if you saw the trailer, you know that she can actually grab lightning and shape it into a massive glaive that leaves a big lightning wave after its slash. Not much more to say than that. Cool dragon with red lightning? She's just fun. Godfrey, first Elden Lord. Another practice boss before the real boss. This time, the legendary father of Mog and Morgot. Similar to Mog the Omen, this is pretty much first phase Godfrey. But this is slightly better because there is some new stuff that the real Godfrey has over his illusion. And I do find this fight much more fun than Mog. It's faster, and there's less time where the boss de-aggros from the player, keeping the pressure up. The attacks are quicker, and you get a better sense of when to dodge. Overall, just a really fun fight. Lich Dragon 40 stacks. The next evolution of Lanciax, 40 stacks lightning comes packaged with death. Yep, death lightning. There's a lightning mechanic on top of this, where I don't know what triggers it, and I don't even recall it myself, but you will sometime have a lightning build up on your character, and once it procs, it becomes stationary and you can dodge away from it, and I think you can even run away from it once it procs. 40 stacks can use the Lanciax glaive and summon these really awesome looking lightning spears. And man, the music here gives me some Calamite vibes. So to you, 40 stacks, you're a really cool dragon. Now for my 10 favorite boss fights in Elden Ring. Number 10, Fire Giant. From finally made a fantastic giant fight. And a fantastic looking giant that feels like it was ripped out of Norse mythology, mixed with a Cyclops head for a body. Seriously, I felt like I was in the new God of War games while just looking at him. The braids with the big red hair, and just that face alone. Feels like a true Jotun to me. With a moveset with not overly long and not instantaneous attacks, damage that feels correct and logical, a big open arena to fight in, and one of the freakiest transformations ever where he removes his weak point and reawakens the inner god within him. This boss is really fun. I mean, to go from a giant with a massive plate for a weapon, to a destructive pyromancer that make Jester Thomas feel jealous. And the sounds of this beam. Just incredible. This fight makes me very happy. It's not the best fight by any means, but it's just a really fun fight with a decent score. Number 9, Margaret the Fellowman. Ah, Margaret. What an incredible first impression and a taste for what Elden Ring would have in it. I tell you, the moment I heard those words,
Foul tarnished.
I knew death was on the horizon. But dear God, despite the 24 deaths to him in the network test, defeating him on my first try this time felt really great. But Margaret is just a really awesome boss. I like pretty much everything about him. His voice and words, him appraising you for fighting so well, his moves, and how much more alive he feels compared to so many bosses. Oh my god, the amount of follow-ups on this dude, and just how darn sweet those moves look. Like, this can be the first true boss of the game to many, and I feel like he really teaches you and gives you the correct mindset for the rest of the game. So Margaret, I don't care how ruthless you were in the network test. I love you. I still don't get why they gave you Melania's theme in the network test. Number 8. Beast Clergyman, Malekith, the Black Blade. I remember in the trailer that your mask looked like this. I swear, it did look like this. One of the raddest characters in the whole game, Malekith the Black Blade is such a sick and slick boss fight. If the sound of a wolf holding on to death itself in the shape of a massive blade isn't rad to you, then I don't know how to impress you. Entering the arena for the first time and finding out that the Beast Boy is sitting in a boss arena and fighting him down to his second phase where he reveals his true form must have been a big surprise for many. Not for me, cause a friend of mine spoiled this for me. Anywho, the Beast Clergyman is the same as when he grows too hungry and starts to rip and shred your guts out back at his crib. So it is the same as Mog the Omen, but the difficulty and the quality goes up by tenfold once that cutscene plays. Seeing that sword with its sick black and red flame, and just look at this boy! He doesn't even look like he belongs here, he's so cool. The entire fight at first feels like you fought Vort after he had taken lessons from the Irophil Knights on how to be even faster and leagues more dangerous. The Beastman is ridiculously fast and hard hitting, and those beast incantations? For me they're really hard to deal with, unless it's the Boulder or the Cocoa Puff attack. And the second phase feels like fighting a Torius if he was from Bloodborne. It's like fighting against a skilled sword fighter that has had a lot of experience in the field with his sword to such a degree that he can just leap into the air and spin like a goddamn spin top and shoot strider slices at you. Wait, what? He can climb the pillars? What is this boss? The main issue for me with Malekith is the beast phase being really relentless for me and the crazy debuff that Malekith applies to you when he lands a hit. But more on that later in the difficulty ranking. For now, Malekith is awesome. Number 7.
Heed my words. I am Melania, Blade of Mykola.
Shut. The nightmare for game journalists all around the world, and the boss that so many wish never existed, I bet. True Empyrean Melania, who's still waiting for her brother's return, is a very challenging boss fight for so many reasons that I again will talk more about it in the difficulty portion. She is the Sister Fried or Lady Maria in this, and I think she is a really well designed boss. She's really fast and very combative. But she can be very honorable and let you have moments of healing. She isn't always attacking, which is nice, even if some of her combos may seem like they last a little bit too long. With a vast moveset and how elegantly she uses her blade, she feels alive and like someone that could take on the other bosses. All of it takes place in a depressing yet pretty arena, which is where Mykola was last seen before Mog abducted him. But it wouldn't be a proper boss fight in a Souls game nowadays without a second phase, of course. So once you manage to delete her first health bar faster than you will lose your sanity, you will witness a cutscene where Melania... Sorry GoFolk, I can't showcase the second phase. YouTube sent me a letter describing their fear and making people turn more lustful. So in the interest of keeping my channel, you're going to have to Google it. I think your second phase falls under a rule... And come on! If there ever was a boss in all of these games that embodies the common tagline of "Get Good," she is the one! This is the boss that should be the mascot for it. Number 6. Morgot, the Omen King. Probably the most complicated boss in the entire game, but darn if Morgot isn't just truly awesome. Standing as the last defender for his mother, Morgot offers one of the most intense and epic fights in the entire game. Just like with his illusion Margaret, Morgot feels like one of the most alive bosses ever in Souls. The unrelenting and seemingly unpredictable moveset that requires all the brain power to remember with so many mixed timings. It makes him feel like an actual character. Like yes, Malenia might be harder than him, but personally, there was always a sense of predictability to her, despite the amount of moves and combos she has. With Morgot, I don't feel like I ever knew what he was gonna do. But this is more of what I feel like is a proper reuse or a reskin. Making the player know some information about the boss, but then toss in 20 whole new mechanics and elements to surprise the player but still reward them for knowing some of it. And I mean, he's just cool. His oil textured sword that used to be his cane, how agile he is, how he probably self-taught himself how to fight. He's smart and honest, and I actually kind of feel bad for him. And to you, Anthony Howell, you have a lovely voice. Number 5. Mog, Lord of Blood. Mog, Mog, Mog. Mog, 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 Mog. Offspring of Marika and Godfrey. Brother to Morgot, the Mykola abductor. The amount of times you batter my face in, to the point that I went full Commentasaur and mimicked here on you. But damn if I haven't started to really appreciate you and realize how bloody cool you are. Mog to me is like the new Nameless King. Delayed attacks that hit really hard and with an HP pool that truly feels like fighting him again. Just like with fake Mog, they both share the same moves, which includes the pretty annoying claw move that took me way too long to dodge right, and also sounds similar to something from Rayman 3. And similar to his brother Morgot and their father Godfrey, all three share a practice/teaser for the real fight against them, which I can appreciate, even though Mog is more of a reuse. The score they plays for Mog is really beautiful, his trident is gorgeous, and a great weapon as well, and I just love his overall design. When it comes to fighting Mog, I always delay my rolls and I always anticipate a follow-up after his claw move. Something I find really awesome and rewarding is paying attention to this move. If Mog holds his trident with 2 hands while doing this move, he always follow up with another attack. Also, you think this fella would be immune to bleed, seeing how he's actually using it? But he can actually bleed. In fact, that is his weakness. Mog, my fella, we gotta talk about something. The main thing I could see people having issues with is the second phase, which is pretty intense. The knee heal with a knee heal to the knee heal that may require many flasks to heal up from, the added bloodlust flames onto every attack, and the many new moves Mog gets can make many, including myself, hate him. He is really hard, but from the amount of times I've fought him now, I've really learned his moves and it just feels great fighting the Lord of Blood. And I do appreciate how close the stake of Marika is to him. Not to mention, this kill of Mog I will always remember.
Slow and steady wins the race, Joel. Let us know when you're going to use his thing. Okay, I can get back.
Mog down.
Dude, that's really good. Alright, careful. Heal up, heal up. Full health. Full health, no health. He's got a knee heal. Oh, he's casting it. That's what he's doing. Oh, kill him!
He's dead.
Whoa, why did he lose some health?
Because he was casting knee heal on all of us.
You're welcome.
Almost, yeah.
All right. Thank you. Oh, my lord.
Number 4. Dragon Lord Placidusax. Never did I think From would make a dragon that come close to the might and quality of my boy, Dark Eater Medir. But to me, they did. Dragon Lord Placidusax. Wow, what a name. What a dragon fight. The ancient once 4-headed dragon lord, awaiting its god in a storm beyond time. A dragon of such dominance, he has a sworn cult of beast people worshipping him. A dragon with such strength that it managed to survive a fight against Godfrey. That's quite impressive. Due to his injured and most likely rigid body from all the waiting, and probably due to his age, Placidius Sax isn't a very movable boss. He is somewhat stationary compared to the other dragons. But he can deliver on that difficulty promise with his high damage, which it can be delivered via a very smart fire move where he actually shoots behind him, his wing slam, throwing boulders at you, shaping lightning into a giant lightning claw, or summoning a lightning storm where 3 bolts are always aimed where you are. These bolts are really well designed in that you can actually dodge them and continue damage him while it's happening. And then the 2 most outstanding moves he has. The first is where he slams down a bolt of Grandsax into the ground. As the area around it starts glowing bigger and more red to tell the player the sheer size of its explosion, the music fades out before... Goosebump inducing. And then there's the phase 3-esque attack where he summons a continuous lightning storm with bolts that home in on your location while you play Find That Dragon! And you better be prepared, cause this dragon goes leagues above the speed limit in Minnesota when he finally reappears with a lightning claw body slam, and as a finishing touch on this delicious 3-course meal of devastation, Placidius Sax pulls out his inner Shin Godzilla move and starts spewing golden fire followed by a arena-sized golden laser beam attack. There's so much going on that when I fought him, I just had such a stupid face throughout the entire fight. He really is a much better spectacle boss to me than Rykar. Where Rykar will drain your stamina by running or dodging all of his skulls, Placidius Sax gives you more than enough time to get back stamina during the 2.5 phase attack. You're not better than Midir by any means, but you are a great dragon nonetheless. Please put a Stake of America closer to his boss fight though. Please? Now for the last 3. And I'm not gonna lie, these last 3 bosses for me were really hard to rank correctly. Each of them does so many things right for me and I can't contain my hype for these. But after a lot of thought and struggle, I think this is how my list will end. Number 3. Radagon of the Golden Order, Elden Beast. What a finality to the entire journey! The moment you witness Marika morphing into Radagon and then the Elden Ring theme plays is one of the most goosebump inducing moments for this entire game. And then, here's my little theory speak and I most likely will be wrong about this. The fight is on as Radagon guards the Elden Ring with his last strength and from what's left of him after the fight against Marika. Marika had come to resent the Great Will and couldn't stand the death of Godwyn, so she shattered the Elden Ring. Meanwhile, her male side and former husband to Ronaldo and second Elden Lord Radagon, who is loyal and truthful towards the Greater Will, decided to do all that he could to restore the Elden Ring and save the world from chaos. But it was too late. The Elden Ring had been scattered into great runes and now they both, one and the same, were imprisoned inside the Archery. And what I think happened was that Radagon fought against Marika and stabbed her, which to me would explain why we fight Radagon and not Marika in the first place. Now, how or why she was hung up on a rune arc or why the spear is bright red and probably made from destined death and who made it, I have no clue. Anyway, Radagon is such a unique boss. His appearance is that of a broken man made out of the same material as Filianor's egg. There's this dark energy flowing deep within him that I believe is the Elden Beast. His luscious red hair, the curse from the fire giants, and of course, the Elden Ring itself placed inside his body. His utility consists of the very hammer Marika used to shatter the Elden Ring, and the same Radagon used when he tried to mend it back, and the many incantations that he studied and created with his son Mykola. He can cast lightning, scatter incantation projectiles, teleport, bash her head in while one-handing the hammer and mark the ground with the Elden Ring symbol along with his own rune mark. Heck, he can even take off the ground and deliver a mighty force slam. Radagon is really well designed, not only for people that parry, but just overall. He's a challenging and fair and very fun boss fight. But just when you thought to yourself, Radagon went and that's it? The living incarnation of the Elden Ring awakens and takes up its own sword, while transcending us into a higher plane where the true final fight takes place. The Elden Beast and its score, arena and atmosphere is something straight out of Bloodborne and Dark Souls 1 fused together. It's like if you took Ash Lake, made the trees yellow and more glowy, and combined it with the very cosmos from Bloodborne. All while you and the Elden Beast fight on what looks to be an endless ocean or lake. And wow! This creation knows some really awesome moves. Estelle's cosmic cloud with exploding stars, an AoE kinda similar to Placidius Axe, a sky rain of incantation needles, flipping using its own sword like a goddamn moonlight greatsword, fire breath, and the Elden Ring blast, where it swims away and begins levitating in the air, forming the Elden Ring in the sky, and another one on the ground that closes in before exploding. This attack is just really fun. Either dodge through the stun ring or you can jump over it. And when the Elden Beast has been conquered, you finally get to choose the destiny of the lands between. Going back to the lore side, Radagon and America along with the Elden Beast represent or are based on Rebis. What's Rebis? Well, Rebis is the end product of the Great Work. After one has gone through purification and purification, separating opposing qualities, those qualities are united once more in what is sometimes described as the Divine Hermaphrodite, a being of both male and female qualities as indicated by the two heads within a single body, and this one being can only be fused by the aid of a dragon. The dragon in alchemy represents the prime matter, as well as the third element, sulfur. The winged dragon suggests ascension, a merging of material and spiritual. So, Elden Beast in this case would be the dragon, obviously, and Radagon being the male and the sun, and Marika is the female and the moon. Back to my conclusion about this fight. My main complaint about it is that the Elden Beast is very evasive and it leads to a lot of waiting. The Elden Star move that it has is really annoying to deal with on top of what the Elden Beast is already doing. Personally, I would have liked to just have Radagon. Sure, Elden Beast is fancy and all, but Radagon steals the show for me and feels more like a finality. But as it is, this is an outstanding fight. Just make sure you wear plenty of sunscreen and cover your eyes when you enter his arena. Number 2. Godfrey, first Elden Lord. The boss I was the most hyped to fight ever since the first official art of him came out. And boy was he not a disappointment. Godfrey, the first Elden Lord, first husband of Queen Marika, father of Godwyn, Godric, Morgot, Mog, and Nephililu, and the first Tarnished. Oh boy, oh boy. This legendary warrior of unfathomable power and magnitude, being so war-hungry and containing so much fury that he had to take the big white fluffy lion named Serosh upon his back. Serosh would not only be a loyal combatant to Godfrey, but he also contains the raw and pure force that Godfrey could otherwise release. It's just... I'm speechless. What more is there? He was a good and loving father to his children. He broke and heavily injured Placidius Axe. This is the man that Radagon was inspired by. His accomplishments and who he was still echoes throughout the land. He led an army of 16 Crucible Knights. Marika did him dirty when she ordered a war against the Giants with Godfrey in the lead, ending a massive defeat to the Giants while Godfrey took on the Stormlord himself. And on the day where his last opponent fell, he lost his hue in his eyes, was exiled by Marika from the lands between, becoming the first Tarnished. He became head of the Badlands under his new name Horalu, where he had a new daughter, Nephili, which he entrusted to Sir Gideon Ofnir. Once this shattering was over, Godfrey set his course back to the lands between in an attempt to return order to the world and to be redeemed. My theory is that Marika feared Godfrey and his power, so she seduced him, played him like a fool, gave him Serosh who would make him weaker than her, and then make him do all of her dirty work, and then scold him and finally banish the one mighty lord. I feel genuinely bad for him. This is the best version of a Gwyn, someone of similar godlike status but way more empathetic and sympathetic. He was played by the one he used to love, exiled from his home. We kill his first children, and at the very moment we meet him, he has nothing. He probably doesn't even know if Nephili is even alive. All there is for him is to become the Elden Lord again, and finally be redeemed and hopefully start over. Think about it, it makes a lot of sense why we would fight him here. Revenge for his children we killed? A duel to prove why he is worthy, or to even show why we are? After all Godfrey has been through, he has doubts over if he even is worthy of being an Elden Lord again. And he is really honorable. He doesn't insult us. He outright praises us for how well we've been fighting. Godfrey has all the rights to fight for what's taken from him. Onto the fight itself. Godfrey fights very similar to his Golden Shade, but with some additional moves thrown in, including a kinda second phase move where he increases the potency and size of his ground stomps and slams. He uses his axe as expertly as Malenia with her katana. His moves are pretty rapid, and he loves to fight, as demonstrated by the small windows you can heal at times. He can stomp so hard that the ground cracks. The sound when he swings his axe feels so heavy and powerful. He has a sick intro move where he jumps and throws his axe at you. His Fissure moves, which annihilates all the ground in a straight line. And at roughly 40% of his health, Godfrey falls onto one of his knees. Serosh, the loyal and wonderful lion, takes its shot and starts to materialize into the physical world before suddenly being stopped by his master. And then... Once that's done, we come to you from downtown as Hoarah enters the scene and literally pulls out all the punches and kicks and aerial moves he can in order to destroy you. Just watch as this mega jacked old Vendrick tosses your character up in the air like a goddamn American football before jumping at you and committing the slam dunk of a century. Or when he just decides to push his own hands down into the earth and just lift up half of the arena. This fight is so ridiculous, but this is precisely why I love it. The music that plays is grand and fitting for an old lord like him. It reminds me of a mix of Jorm the Giant and Darky the Medeir's themes, but with more emphasis on royalty and monarchs. And it gives me a Return of the King or Return of an Old Lord kind of vibe. And the Hoarah part is really good. It screams to you that this is the real warrior you're fighting now. No sugarcoating, you're fighting a true warrior! God, as cheesy as I find that one line, I can't help but love it. I find this fight so fun that with every death I had, I just smiled and never once did I feel like it was too hard or BS. And with how high the damage can be, it just fits so well with who you're fighting here. The only complaints I have with this fight is Hoarah's seemingly never-ending Revenant-esque attack where he just keeps clawing the air. For Godfrey, I don't really like the push that much, because it messes with me with how it feels faster than the other attacks. Otherwise, I love everything about this fight. This is the Lorien and Lothric fight for me in this game. A fight I will always look forward to, and a fight that always puts a smile on my face.
Allow me to paint you the full picture.
Number 1. Star Scourge Radagon. Where to even begin with this boss? I feel like you just hit all the right notes and just ooze with quality. Radagon is the child of Ronaldo and Radagon, explaining his hair color. Brother to Rykard and Ranni, half-brother to Malenia and Mykola, stepbrother to Godwyn, Morgot and Mog. He has a horse called Leonard that he loves so much that he learned gravity magic in order to not hurt him with his massive size. He's a fan of Godfrey, so much that his gear is decorated with lions based on Serosh. His powers were so immense that he was referred to as the mightiest of demigods. He fought against an entire battalion of Cleanrod Knights and was on the verge of defeating Malenia before she released her Scarlet Rod upon him. Jaren organized a festival in the name of the man himself as an invitation to the mightiest of warriors to fight Radagon and grant him an honorable death, and of course, as many people always mention, Radagon fought against the stars and won. He fought the stars, and won. And he kept holding all of this weight until the Tarnished finally defeating him, despite how corrupted his mind was. Like, this lore is just so over the top that it just becomes incredible. And you know Radagon is a great warrior and person, just based on the way everyone talked about him. Or how about this shot of him owning the battlefield and just waiting for Melania to get ready, like a true honorable warrior. Even the way Morgot says his name.
General Radagon.
It sounds like even though he belongs to the willful traitors, there's some level of respect towards him. Then we have the arena itself, which is huge and filled with leftovers from the past war that took place here, which can be used as cover. The red desert of death, accompanied by the blood-soaked sky, that eventually calms down as Radagon brings down the power of the night sky with him, for one of the most unexpected and metal attacks I have ever seen. This dude flies into the sky and rides a freaking meteor down towards the earth. What the? And that's not to say his other attacks are lackluster. He is an aggressive fighter and his damage warrants his hype. As the battle begins, Radagon spams you with gravity arrows, which are actually clean rot knight spears that he rips off his back. He also does an arrow rain like Aldrich and a multi-shot scatter move. As you approach him, he pulls out his black steel swords and rides into battle. Massive slams and slicing combos, using the gravity within the blades to encase them with earth for increased damage, gravity projectiles, his signature star-colored cry move, and even a lightning wave. Always doing his best to protect his horse, even if it means to stomp him down into the sand, which is still kinda questionable how that's keeping Leonard safe, but Radagon does his best with his rotten mind. And once he returns from the sky, he shapes parts of the earth into big gravity spheres, and he can do a giant electric tornado spin. None of the moves I think are way too quick nor too long, and I don't think that his damage is way too much. So his challenge for me is really good, as Radagon offers horse combat for his fight, so you can stay more on him even if it is a little risky. He feels right to fight, in the sense that you can see and feel the power he's meant to have. Too many bosses or enemies in these games can do the slowest swing at you, and deal so much damage that it feels like arbitrary difficulty. Like Dark Souls 1's mushrooms. It's hilarious to see how much damage they can do in a single swing, but it doesn't feel correct, you know? And I'm aware that questioning a fantasy world with real-life logic isn't correct, because it's a fantasy world with its own rules. Obviously it's not meant to be realistic. Because then you start to question how much more isn't just a guaranteed one-shot from the things that we actually fight in these games. But Radagon feels correct. He hits hard because he's meant to be this strong. Blades the size of, what, several people, made out of steel coming at you at high speed? They should hurt. Or even just the gravity balls, or the lightning wave. His aesthetic is incredible. He looks like a soul version of Ganon with his red hair and face. His armor is stunning and a really good set to wear. Radagon has no reskins and is a unique boss. His weapons are pretty cool and fun to use, and his rune, I'd say, is one of the better ones in the game. He has a pretty obvious weakness to make him easier if you find him too hard. Radagon is completely optional unless you want Ronnie's ending. Due to the Radagon festival, there is 7 summons that you can have all at once during this fight, making it a raid boss fight. Though Patches summons himself out, so 6 summons actually. The Stake of America is pretty much next to the portal. In terms of scale and spectacle, he speaks completely by himself. And that music! The score for Radagon is one of the most storytelling themes I've ever heard. Most themes just add some flavor to the fight. By taking the songs by themselves, you can paint a picture of what you may be fighting. But rarely do they have what feels like a story within it, like Radagon's theme. You can hear a story of the battle being told while listening. And once you fought Radagon, You get a better visualization of the battle by just listening to it. The intro as Radagon and the Tarnished seeing each other from a distance. The music builds up as Radagon keeps the pressure up with his arrows. And then the music crescendos as Radagon grabs his swords and rides into battle, either against the lonely Tarnished or against the full raid team. And even just his name, Star Scourge Radagon? Heck, Radagon doesn't even have a repetitive dialogue every time you get killed by him. Even that is a blessing. This is a boss that is so over the top that he becomes amazing. I think he is hard, but so fun and rewarding. He should have never been nerfed. He is just as hard as a demigod should be of his proportion. And even though I love him, if he was the hardest, even harder than Melania, I would not be mad. And I will make it clear here. This should be the boss that no one ever should judge you for summoning for. He is a raid boss. There is so many summons specifically for him as a mechanic. I am of the belief that you can use whatever you want in order to accomplish your goal in these games. I don't mind it at all. And I do understand where some people might be coming from with the whole you shouldn't summon because it makes you a worse person, you should do everything by yourself kind of mentality. But Radagon, if any boss, should not be the boss you should be judged on for summoning, when it's literally a mechanic for him. So, too long didn't read. Radagon checks all the things I want from a boss. Close walk back to him, hard but fair and fun boss design, no restrictions on what you're allowed to use, awesome music, a great lore, open arena that doesn't trap the player, a phase 2 that isn't too complicated, feels rewarding, etc. Whew. With all of that said, it was hard. But Radagon, you are the best boss to me in Elden Ring. Until the DLC maybe. And now to rank all of these bosses from easiest to hardest. For the purpose of this rank, we're going to use my first playthrough's deaths and go really quick through those that I never died to some deaths, and finally to the 10 that I find to be the absolute hardest. So, let's begin. The ones that I never died to. Miranda the Blighted Bloom, Omen Killer and Miranda the Blighted Bloom, Battle Maze Huges, Soldier of Godric, Demi-Human Chiefs, Beastmen of Fair Missoula, Scale of Misbegotten, Necromancer Garrus, Escar Priest of Blood, Kindred of Rot, Nox Sorceress and Nox Priest, Stone Digger Troll, Alabaster Lord, Fierce Champions, Clean Rod Knights, Abductor Virgins, Bloodhound Knight, Rune Bear, Spirit Collar Snail, Onyx Snail, Sanguine Noble, Demi-Human Queens, Wormface, Royal Revenant, Godskin Apostle and Godskin Noble, Spirit Collar Snail, Fell Twins, Balls Carry Knight, Godfrey the Grafton, Ancient Heroes and More, Patches, Mad Pumpkin, Cemetery Shade, Grave Warden Duelist, Golem, Sir Gideon Offner, the All-Knowing, Red Wolves, Dragonkin Soldier, Smirog, Exekis, Grail, Aegil, Borealis, Mimic Tear, Ancient Dragon Lanciax, Ancestor Spirits, Godric the Grafton, Fire Giant, Margaret the Fellowman, Lich Dragon 46, Royal Knight Loretta, Crystallion, Tabia Mariner, Commander O'Neill, Crucible Knight and Misbegotten Warrior. The ones I died to: Grafted Scion, Crucible Knight Duo, Godskin Apostle, Godskin Noble, 3 Sentinel, Morgot, Ronaldo, Loretta, Adula, Dragon Lord Placidusax, Godfrey Goldenshade, Tricia Misbegotten, Archery Avatars, Magmawars, Adon Fever Fire, Misbegotten Crusader, Vike, Falling Beastar, Mog the Omen, Leonine Misbegotten, Archery Watchdog, Draconic Tree Sentinel, Elimer and Bellahunters, Omen Killer, Radagon, Black Knife Assassin, Estelles, Knights Cavalry, Rykar, Lord of Blasphemy, Deathbirds, Crucible Knight, Radagon Elden Beast, and Godfrey the First Elden Lord. The 10 death sentences, aka the 10 hardest bosses for me in Elden Ring. Number 10, Ulcerated Tree Spirit. The unsettling movement and just how these creatures behave makes it really hard for me to telegraph if it's an attack or not. Their AoE is not only big, but it also summons the mini explosions around its vicinity to look after, and many of them are putrid, which means Scarlet Rot. Great! Just great! The speed and evasiveness, the range of certain attacks, I hate them. I just hate them. Number 9, Mog, Lord of Blood. The main reason Mog is hard for me is the bloody claw move that messes with the dodge window of the rest of his attacks. Sometimes the stab can get me, sometimes he does follow-ups and I'm not ready, and his second phase is really rough. Even when using the flask thing for the knee heal, Mog's fires covers a lot of ground and each flame builds up bleed. You have to handle so much in the second phase on top of the moves Mog also gets. From the aerial throw blood first and then crash land move that can even have one of two follow-ups, to the stab which now can do a secondary attack. Or when the trident stabs the ground, it explodes and all of his swings tosses out a blood fire. As much as I've come to love him, his second phase is where the hardest part of him lies. Number 8. Malenia, Blade of Mykola. She wouldn't be referred to as one, if not the toughest boss in Elden Ring. Heck, some even call her the hardest boss in all of Souls. And it isn't hard to see why. The big deal is that Malenia has Bloodborne properties and she will get health from landed hits, regardless if you block or not. Just landing a hit gives her health. So that's already something that adds to her difficulty. Next up, she has 2 entire health pulls. Then we have her damage being very high. Her speed ranges from Lady Maria but quicker to Gurman's AoE slow almost. She has typical combos that never change, follow-ups to some, a move that sends out copies of her, the Scarlet Rod Flower Slam, Scarlet Rod Butterflies, mini AoEs, she tends to be very evasive, and finally the most infamous move ever, the Waterfowl Dance, where she leaps up in the air for a brief moment before releasing a massive combo of Freeze/Cyclones, ending with an unexpected final slash. Oh, and in the second phase, pretty much all of her attacks have Scarlet Rod build-up, so that's also neat. But she is only 8! How isn't she number 1? Well, she is hard, but I don't find her impossible as many say. I found the biggest success is to play aggressively. The reason being is that Malenia has very poor poise, so a lot of hits from you will stagger her. She can be stunned and be open for a riposte even. And for those who can, she is parryable, but it does require free parries. But how do you deal with a Waterfowl Dance? Number 1. You can do the outrun maneuver where you run away from the first wave, dodge through the second one, and then kinda ignore the third one. Or if you're fast enough, you can even run away from the 2 first volleys and then you just ignore the third one. Number 2. Just roll through it. It takes about 1 to 2 rolls per volley to successfully dodge this move. It isn't that bad, it just appears to be intimidating. Just don't spam roll after each volley, you gotta wait just a little bit. I actually find her clone move way harder to deal with actually. As for the Scarlet Rod Flower, try running towards her whenever she's doing it and be prepared to dodge just in case. Then you can toss some projectiles on her via arrows, bolts, magic, you name it. So yes, she is hard, but I don't think that she is the hardest in all of Elden Ring. Number 7. Beast Clergyman, Malekith the Blackblade. First off, the Beast Clergyman with his Beast Incantations is unrelentingly difficult to me. It feels like you can never attack him or have barely a shot at healing. Then we have Malekith himself, with a debuff and an incurable fire to hurt all over your health. Like, how can massive damage on top of reduced total health and a fire that can't be purged that continues to eat at your health be better than Malenia? I don't get some of you. I really don't. And then there's the mixed attacks. Malekith has some really well telegraphed and easy moves, but then comes the slices that can be a single to like 5 shots. And then he may even do a 2-row swing while landing near you. You got the ground stab for a mini AoE, his own single volley Waterfowl Dance, and all of these moves gives that debuff and hurt really bad. I find these factors leagues harder than Malenia. At least she is consistent and only gets some new moves and a status effect that can be cured and has a build up. Not an entire new moveset while going from Beastman to Beastatorius with an instant status effect that is incurable. Number 6. Commander Niall. Doesn't matter that I summoned for him, Niall is one of the hardest fights in the game. His insane level of damage, delayed attacks mixed with follow-ups, frostbite, AoEs that covers near half of the arena, and the 2 Banish Knights that he can even buff. All of these elements make Niall really tough. Number 4. Blackblade Kindred. Aggressive moves, a lot of damage, speed, multiple weapons, and being really big doesn't help. Number 3. Valiant Gargoyle and Valiant Gargoyle with a Twin Blade. Aggressive moves, a lot of damage, speed, multiple weapons, and being really big doesn't help. Probably never doing this solo. Number 2. Godskin Duo.
Zero deaths!
As I've already addressed when I ranked them as one of the worst boss fights in the game. Two champions sharing the same damage, speed, range and aggressiveness, both having a phase 2, they respawn until their conjoined health bar has been depleted, in an arena which they can break to make it easier to hit you, and it is a mandatory fight every new game. Yeah, no, I'm good. I would have rather fought anything but Godskin Duo as the mandatory fight in the crumbling Faramazula. Electo, Black Knife Ringleader. And we're done. That was all of the bosses in Elden Ring. Thank you for watching. If you made it to the very end, feel free to do the usual, like and subscribe. And if you excuse me, I'm going to get far away from my monitor as possible, as my eyes are hurting by sitting here and waiting for this long. And also, whoever this voice is from beyond, next time at least ask for permission to be in the video.